All right, we're back in our normal spot this week for the death lineup. And this is a good time because the in-season tournament, the first game, the East just finished not too long ago, and Indiana is on a little bit of a heater. They beat the Bucks to go to the finals. They're either going to play the Lakers or the Pelicans. And I know the NBA, ESPN, who actually has the finals? Is it ESPN?
Gotta be, right?
Because ESPN had game 1, and I think TNT has game 2 tonight.
Yes.
So
But it's like a joint broadcast. No, isn't Reggie Jackson
are
just
are they
TNT?
are they doing on both networks? I have no
So
idea.
what I think it
I didn't
was,
even know the game was already on this afternoon. I figured it
that was
was going to be a
terrible.
normal 5 and
Oh,
7:30
remember
start.
what we talked about last week with the ABC game? Guess what the first ABC game is? The
Which one?
championship.
Oh, it is. So it is ABC. There you go.
Yeah, ESPN. So I mean, we were just like, okay, so yeah, for that joint, I mean, I cannot believe they scheduled this thing at a 2 p.m. Pacific time start for, and then this game isn't even until 6. So you have like this hour and a half kind of break, which I guess makes sense since both games are in the same arena. So you have
Yeah.
to filter out the fans. They have different tickets.
That sucks. How come you can't just buy one ticket to get into both games?
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I think it makes sense from like a home court perspective of like trying to shuffle out the Pacers fans so we can get the Lakers fans in. But yeah, I mean, this is such a weird start time for such an important game, and for I think Halliburton's kind of weirdly be like, I don't think he was supposed to be like the poster boy trajectory. I think that was supposed to be like Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic. I think he's kind of coming out of nowhere and stealing that from them.
I think it's cool.
And I think it's awesome. And I think people are relating to it, buying into it, kind of like a similar Steph Curry rise, but like different, totally different. But that's kind of how it feels like. Steph wasn't supposed to be that. And
That's
now
why I think
he
it's
became it.
cool,
Mm-hmm.
because all of the stars in the league are these giant dudes except for Steph. Like,
Athletic. Yeah.
it's LeBron and KD, 10 years ago, and now it's Ant Edwards, who, I mean, he's not 6'9", but he's like built like a football player.
Like a linebacker. Yeah.
Luka's also a big dude. Zion,
Giannis.
obviously. Giannis is a giant human. So you have this like little wiry guard, and it's really cool.
He's not even that little, but he kind of does, he plays
What is he like?
small.
Is he 6'3", 6'4"?
I'd guess 6'5".
Okay, so
I think
he's
he's a little bigger. Yeah, but I mean, he's not really athletic whatsoever. It's just a very fun player to watch. With the pace. I've kind of compared them to like an extreme version of last year's Sacramento Kings. They have last year's Sacramento Kings had the best offensive rating of all time. So super cool feat, right? No, it's not. It's because it happens every single year. The Indiana Pacers now are the greatest offensive rating of all time if they keep it up by like a wide margin. And then they have like the 28th defense in the league.
Well, and the other thing about it is, no matter who they play in this finals, whether it's the Pelicans or the Lakers, they're smaller, and they essentially give up defense for the offense. So they're gonna try and make the game up and down. But what the Lakers are gonna do? LeBron's gonna walk the ball up every time if they're in the finals.
Conspiracy Bill is here. He's already saying that the NBA would never allow the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Indiana Pacers in their championship game for their inaugural in-season tournament. It has to be their new up-and-coming poster boy, defeats the old guard and takes down their former face of the league.
Is that did Conspiracy Bill post that?
I don't think so, but you just
automatically you just
assumed.
You
just
assumed.
Assumed. You said that. Yeah.
Well, okay. So, but
either
team, right? Either team, because the Pelicans are also on the bigger end. Their best two players are Zion and then Brandon Ingram, and then they have actual true center on their team. So whatever it is, Indiana's going to try to get up and down, and those teams are probably going to try to slow them down just by making the game a little bit slower. And we'll see, because the Warriors went through this in their rise in 2014, which is, Chuck would always say you can't win with outside shooting, and you can't win with the pace, because in the playoffs the game slows down. The Warriors proved 4 times that they could also play that style. So that's kind of the next step for Indiana. And you had a great quote when we first started talking about this tournament, because I wasn't really into it. And then, especially when the Warriors got eliminated, I was like, oh man, this is not cool. But you made a quote, or you mentioned a quote by Halliburton where he said something to the effect of, I'm excited for this because I haven't won anything yet. Like, this could be something. And this is a nice little stepping stone for them. And it's been really, really fun to watch them play in these big games. I mean, you beat Boston and now you beat Milwaukee on the way to the championship. That's real stuff right there.
Totally. Do you think it delegitimizes the tournament if you have these two small market teams who kind of don't really have championship, like they're not going to win the championship? I think we can confidently say, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I think we can confidently say that, say, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Indiana Pacers are the championship round. Neither of those teams are going to make the finals, in my opinion. And I love both teams. I'm a big advocate for both teams. Do you think that delegitimizes this tournament at all? Because I know I remember mentioning last week that it's like I kind of preferred that, the small market team thing, because, you know, this is like a tournament that they could win. It's in the beginning of the season, you know, towards the end of the season when you have more of this stuff figured out. But in the beginning of the season, you can catch someone by surprise. Or I don't know. What do you think about that?
Okay, so the comparison with the Warriors is not the best, because if you think of that 2015 Warriors team, they won like 67 games or whatever it was, and the Pacers are not. They're basically tied for fifth currently after the 20 games or whatever in the Eastern Conference. So it's not like they're blowing, you know, some of these really good teams out and surprising everybody. Like, I remember that one game where the Warriors, they just like boat raced the Clippers on national television. It was like their coming out party, and like Draymond just punking Blake Griffin. Like, they don't have that, but this could be a nice thing to kind of put the magnifying glass on them, and for the national fan base to go, oh, this team might be for real. Because without this tournament, they would have to do it sort of by upsetting teams in the playoffs. And so now you can have your eye on the Pacers and go, okay, these guys are real. We need to keep our eye on them, you know, as a possible tournament, you know, as a possible NBA Eastern Conference player in that race. So I think it's actually good. Now, I think the Pelicans are also, you know, they're also a pretty good basketball team, but they're similar, 12-8, and Pelicans are 12-10. So it's not like if they both had like kick butt regular seasons so far where they were out in front, I think it'd even be more so. But this is a good way to get the magnifying glass on both teams. I would say your point, the delegitimizing the tournament, is the Nuggets not being in it, because like, I think most people still think they're the leading contender for the championship, but they didn't even make the knockout round. So, you know, it's almost like, is this real? You know, if Jokic and company are not in this thing, is this really a good test for these teams? In some instances, I sort of understand it and agree with it, but you did get to see the Kings, you did get to see the Pelicans now, and then, you know, the Lakers won that game against the Suns. I think they probably win even without that bogus timeout call, just because they were winning the game. But that was another nice, that felt like a heavyweight fight. And you know what it also showed me? Believe me, we're going to talk Warriors here in a second. It also showed me that I'm not quite sure this Devin Booker point guard situation is going to fly.
Yeah.
He's got the ball in his hands so much, and the length on some of these teams like the Lakers seems to bother him a lot. And he wants to get into his action. He wants to go to the hole. He doesn't want to have to remember to get everyone else going. Like, it was almost like Nurkic played that point center role where they would throw it to the post, then he would make the decision. That kind of worked out for them. But I'm not so sure if Devin Booker is point guard, and, you know, Bradley
Imagine
Beal,
if they had like a Draymond Green. They'd be awesome.
They could use somebody like that. He would actually be perfect for what they need to do.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember watching that first game against the Warriors and being like, okay, I think, are we ready to say that Devin Booker's the best player on this Suns team? And I think watching that Lakers game with him deferring with like a minute left, and not, you know, it's a bad thing to defer, but it was like, I legitimately can't make anything. And I actually just did an action and got nowhere. So KD, please take the ball quick and do something. And he just made it easily. So I think KD still claims his title as one of the best players in the league and better than D-Book still.
Yeah, Davis has the same point that we made last year, is that I wish they would have split it up and made it East versus West in the semifinals so that you could get a West versus West in the finals or an East versus East in the finals. I think that would have been a lot better, because it feels too much like what you do at the end of the season. So yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, we're going to talk about the Warriors now. I wanted to start this, and maybe we'll continue this as a way to sort of measure where we are at with this team. Because if folks remember when we started this podcast, and I looked at the number, this is the 78th show that we've done, so that is a good number right there. We started it in the playoff run of 2022. And luckily, they caught fire and won the title. And so we were able to talk about all of those games. And then last year, they had a solid season, maybe a little bit under expectation, but still, they upset the Kings and they went into the second round of playoffs. So this is really the first time since we've been doing this podcast where there's a little bit of question mark about what they're doing and about where they are. I know that they've had a pretty hard schedule so far, so hopefully they could pick up some easies. But if you're basing it on last night's game, there was one for the pickings, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get that one. So where are you? If you were to say, let's go temperature gauge, let's say between 1 and 10, where 10 is like you are so excited and confident that this team is awesome, and 1 is like, if you were a football fan and you were a New England Patriots fan, that's a 1. Where are you with that?
I think I am at a 4. I think they had a long rest from Saturday was the Clippers game. Slater said on the pod that they got Sunday and Monday off, and then they had a hard practice on Tuesday, and then the Wednesday game against an easy team in the Blazers. Sure, they're a super athletic defensive team, whatever. They're one of the worst teams in the league by record. I think you would hope by having an older team, giving them those days off, not that you were hoping to boat race the Portland Trail Blazers, but you were hoping to not gut one out and need, Jonathan Kuminga to save you in order to win that game. So I think I'm at a 4. And the reason I'm not lower is because I still feel like there are adjustments that can be made within the lineup to make them a little more serviceable. They don't look like contenders. I think you need that secondary shot creator, which we've been talking about since that Nuggets pod after the Nuggets game. We're like, you need someone who can get a bucket.
If
like
CP3
22.
could score, he'd be perfect, but he doesn't really score very much.
But he needs to be in the starting. That guy needs to be in the starting lineup, though. I think that secondary scorer needs to be in the starting lineup. And I watched, I was watching the Trailblazers game today, and I watched, like 3 straight possessions of Klay Thompson miss 3, miss wide open layup. Like he's just not finding it right now. And not to call for his benching, but there are these young guys who look to be playing well in their minutes, and really all 3 of them I think are pluses on the season, and Moses Moody, Pajemski, and Kuminga. So I don't know. I think the starting lineup is where you make those adjustments in order to try to maximize the right now. Like I think, doing the trust in the vets thing that might pay off down the line, but like what if you're too far in the hole down the line? So yeah, I mean, I think Moody's got to start. And I think you got to try a lineup with Steph, Moody, Wiggs, Kuminga, and Dre, just for like throwing our version of the athletic long wing can still run up and down the court type of lineup out there. I think that'd be a fun one.
Yeah, I would love to have seen that lineup last night, especially because what you were talking about, which is the Trailblazers, they basically ran out a version of what Oklahoma City runs out, which is, no real true center, lots of long wings who can run, who can shoot. And all they do is they just switch on defense. And so for the Warriors, they don't really have a post player who could take advantage of that. Nurkic tried very hard, and he kept trying to take these dudes off the dribble and just getting stripped. And kicking the ball out of bounds. I
our
mean,
guy Saric?
Saric.
Yeah.
And he, there was nothing that those guys could do to take advantage of that. There was a couple times where Loon had like a guard on and he was like trying to post up and get the ball. But the problem is he gets the ball, and by the time he's able to do his move, the defense just collapses on him, and there's like triple team him in the post, and he's got to throw some garbage up. So they weren't able to take advantage of that. But like you just said, if you put 5 of your most athletic guys on the floor, and you could literally, well, I mean, Steph is athletic in maybe in a different way, but I mean, you see the shots that he's able to get off against those guys. Like that is athletic talent. But you could even put Clay in instead of Moody and still get away with it, because Clay is also long on his own. He's also tall. He's going to be able to get shots up over smaller guys. But the key is that with Kuminga, he can put pressure on the rim, and the smaller guys, as you saw him get up in the air, he was he I thought he was gonna like jump over the backboard. He got up so high on one of those lobs. So yeah, that would have been the lineup that I thought that they would have gone to. So just to reset here, I'm watching the game, and they're at halftime, and I realize that Kuminga has not shown up in the game yet. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what happened? Like, I don't remember them announcing an injury. And a lot of times I'm fast forwarding through the talk, especially if I'm watching late, because you can get through a game much quicker. Now, like, maybe I missed something about Kuminga, maybe spraining his foot or something, and that's why he's not playing. And then lo and behold, the game's starting to get away from that. I think they were down 11. And with 4 minutes and some change left, they bring in Kuminga, and immediately his athleticism, and I mean, he was playing really hard too. So when he wants to run, he can run. And those guys had played a lot of minutes on the other side, so he had fresh legs, and he just absolute difference maker from the beginning. And I wanted to ask you this question, which is, what in the hell was Kerr thinking with his rotation? Because from what we learned, Kuminga was the 10th man in the rotation. He bumped B-Pods ahead of Kuminga. Obviously, Moody was ahead of Kuminga, and CP being back was ahead of Kuminga, and Wiggins is back in the starting lineup. So he had Kuminga as his 10th man in a game in which the other team had 4 or 5 Kumingas on their team when it comes to athletic talent. And I was just going like, why would you possibly go even smaller and older against these guys? Because the Trailblazers just running up and down the court, Shaedon Sharp's just bombing threes. I'm watching Simons, just like he's just cooking everybody, and I just was like, what did Kuminga do? And it reminded me of last year's playoffs, where what we realized is Kerr's excuse for not playing him in the Lakers series, which was similar in that the Lakers are so long and tall and athletic, and you were thinking, why isn't Kuminga playing? I had the same thought, and he finally comes in, and he's the reason they won the game. And after Kerr's saying, yeah, we got to find a way. Maybe we don't have a solid starting line. And my only thing, and here I'll get to the question, which is, what is he adjusting for, do you think, as the reason to make Jonathan Kuminga the 10th guy? What is his reasoning in his brain, in his mind, as he's trying to put this thing together? Why is how could Jonathan Kuminga possibly be the 10th man in this roster?
It seems like the most Steve Kerr reasoning is that the 10 people or 9 people ahead of him make the least amount of boneheaded mistakes, I guess, like in comparison. Like he could trust them. They're Moody and Pajemski have both already showed that they play above their years. That's like the only thing I could think of, because I feel like that's kind of what I've been parading for Kerr for, like, these past, since we've been doing the podcast, and I have to continue to be, explained that he just goes with the guys he trusts at the end of the day. And Kuminga's been pretty spotty this year. He's shooting 25% from three, has a good game every 3 games in terms of scoring. Had that first Clippers game that he played really well. Second Clippers game didn't play well at all. And then here we are again. He plays well. So that's the only thing. That's genuinely the only thing I can think of, is that he thinks that all the guys ahead of him are the least likely to be in the wrong spot, commit a turnover, foul at the wrong time. That I don't think it's valid. I don't think it's valid because this stuff hasn't been working. I think he's in a position where he needs to kind of try stuff. He can't be too complacent with how his system's been working. I think we're at a point where he needs to those allegations against him where it's like, hey Steve, you were able to inherit a championship team. We don't believe any of your rings are valid. Hey buddy, I think it's time to prove why they're all wrong. But
well, okay, so here is my thought about what you just said, and this is what I was thinking about today as we were putting the show notes together. This is probably his hardest job that he's ever had to do as a head coach. And some may go back to 2020 and go, what about that year? Well, no, that year I'm sure it was frustrating, but they didn't have the talent. They were missing so many guys.
Zero aspirations.
And eventually they just went into tank mode, right? And that was the goal. This is harder because what he's dealing with are the end or nearing the end, the post-prime career of people that he loves and respects. And one of those people is Klay Thompson, who everybody roots for. And I go back to this Tim Kawakami question and Klay's reaction, which was, oh, so you want Steve to bench me? And that wasn't actually Tim's question, though. I definitely understand why if Klay's feeling it a little bit, why he would answer that way. He was frustrated. But the mere fact that he says, oh, you want Steve to bench me, that almost said to Steve Kerr, you better not bench me, because if you bench me, then you're listening to the media. And I was just like, wow, what a statement there. And it's almost like Kerr's hands are tied with Klay right now. Now, I know some of this is he believes in Klay. He thinks Klay is going to hit the next shot, even if he misses the first 9, which he did yesterday, nearly. But it's not only Klay. How much rope do you give Andrew Wiggins? Andrew Wiggins is, very close to being on Shaq and the Fool almost every game these days. He's doing these, he's grabbing the ball and he's swooping in and he's losing it and throwing it way up in the air and into the crowd and kicking it and can't continue his dribble, losing the ball. I'm just like, it's almost like, in the original Space Jam, when all the all-stars lose all their powers and Charles Barkley can't dribble anymore and Muggsy Bogues is tripping over. That's what Wiggins looks like on the break sometimes. And then other times they throw it to him and it's picturesque finger roll athletic Wiggins that we know. But both of those guys are not playing well, and you continue to play them in lineups with Steph, and they bring down the starting lineup. And at some point, I think you just have to have a much quicker trigger on removing them for the game and putting Moses Moody in, putting CP3 in, putting Jonathan Kuminga in. When he doesn't have his pacifier right now. Steve Kerr's pacifier is GP, because if the team starts slow, GP has the ability to make something happen defensively that could start a fast break. But there's no GP right now. It sounds like he's going to be out for at least he's gonna they're not going to look at him again for another week. So that's we're talking a couple of weeks probably before they even talk about him playing again. So he's got his hand. Steve Kerr, this is his toughest job. He's got the pressure of Steph Curry at the end of his prime, still able to bring it every night. Draymond still good enough.
I think he's still good enough. I think the thing with Draymond is that it's the offense needs to be good enough so Draymond's offense sometimes goes unnoticed. I think Draymond's has lately played as well as he usually does in these past couple of years, but I think when he's not bringing anything offensively, it's way more heightened when no one else is bringing anything offensively.
Yes. Yes. And so I think he's going to have to make adjustments sooner than later. You're 1/4 of the season done, just about. I think they're 9-10. Is that their record right now? Let me look that up just to double check. I think they're 9-10. No, they're 10-11. Sorry, 10-11. So you're under 500. I think you're still another 20 games before some of those teams start to separate, but the Timberwolves starting 16-4, they're gonna be in the playoffs unless they completely fall over. The Mavericks 12-8, they're gonna be in the playoffs. They're not gonna miss. And then so it's gonna be the Clippers and the Rockets. The Rockets maybe they fall off, but the Warriors, the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Suns, the Kings, they're all gonna be jumbled up again. And the Warriors don't want to be in the race for the 8th spot. Like, that's not a fun place to be for those vets. They want to be in the top 6 again, like they were last year. So they got some work to do to get there, and I think they're gonna have to start figuring this thing out maybe before Kerr even probably wants to, just because of how close this West might be.
And I think if you look at the schedule right now of what the games we have to come, I don't think you can write in any like guaranteed W except for maybe 2. We have,
especially after they gave up that Clippers game, which was money in the bank. That game was money in the bank, and they still gave that game up, which was crazy.
I feel like we feel a lot better if they don't give that game up.
Yes, 100%.
So they have OKC, which they've already beaten us 2 out of 3 times this year. This will be the 4th time playing them. They have Phoenix. Phoenix has beaten us both times. The Clippers series split 1-1. Brooklyn, we haven't beat them once, but they kind of profile as that young athletic team that tends to give this team trouble. Yep. They got Portland again. Then we get Boston. I think that Boston game will be really interesting to see, like, if it's close. And I think it will be, but just like
the Warriors play Boston really well.
Yeah, I think that'll be like a good kind of reminder of like, hey, they can still really get up if they really try to, which is kind of annoying. But then you have Washington, which I think is one of the ones you could probably write in a guaranteed W.
Yeah, we thought that last year, and when we went to see Detroit too, and that did not happen. Yeah. That W did not happen. So, because we're trying to go to that Washington game, we want to see some JP.
Then you get Portland, Denver, Miami, Dallas, Orlando. Like, it doesn't really get easy. Like, it's not.
A lot of teams are at the same level, and so it's like everybody's. It feels like in the NBA right now, everybody's like 12-10. Like, that's just everybody's record is 12-10.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had some other thoughts. If you already said that you think Moody should start over Clay. I'm not sure if I'm there yet, though. It does look like Clay is the first guy out these days. Like, he was
okay. So I pulled this
half.
up. I pulled this to look. So in the first quarter, Clay was the first one to sub out at the 7-minute mark. I think it was like 7:40. I just lost.
So he's playing 5 minutes. It's like 5 minutes, and then he goes to the bench.
Yeah, and then Looney was the next one to sub out, and that was at the 5-minute mark. So another whole 2 minutes before someone else got subbed out. Clay didn't look too excited to get subbed out at the 7-minute mark.
He didn't. And that's part of it for Kerr, right? Is he doesn't want to lose that guy.
Yeah.
Clay's a champion. You can't lose Clay.
I mean, what is your like recipe to fix it? You still ride with the vets. You still hope that, something gets going. Wiggins, before he slammed his hand in the car door, was starting to look like he was taking a turn for the better. Like, Clay had a few good games before Wiggins went out too. So, and then he's just kind of back on the dumpster fire. Like, what do you do? What is your recipe here?
So I think a couple of things. I think we need to see more Draymond at center. Now, that is a lot of weight on Draymond's back, right? For him to, and I'm talking starting important games, like for them to get out to a good lead because they don't have Draymond and Looney playing together. And look, if Looney was, if this was Sacramento Kings playoffs Looney, then you have a different story, but that is not who he is right now.
He played well last night, I think.
I'm looking at his box here. So he had 8 rebounds. Draymond had 10.
Mm.
Draymond almost had a triple double. He was 1 assist short from a triple double. But
Yeah, he played well.
Looney was 2 of 6 shooting in 16 minutes, 8 rebounds, and a -7 in his 16 minutes.
Mm.
Just not a good matchup for him, though. The good matchups for him are like when the other team actually plays a real center, because they're also going to have somebody, on the slower side that, and he's going to need it for rebounding. But these teams like Oklahoma City, where they don't really even play a 5, that's almost, it's almost impossible for Looney to play in those games. So I would play Draymond and Kuminga together. And I think last night showed that Draymond, we kept thinking that CP was going to be the guy to unlock Kuminga. But if you notice, a lot of what they do when CP has the ball is he dribbles, and then he ends up trying to find JK on like a post up, and then it's up to JK to do some like one-on-one move, and then you're talking about the decision making, right? That sometimes gets him in trouble. Draymond is looking for this dude just to cut constantly. And I would pair them up together, and I would I would allow um Clay to I think it just takes so much more pressure off of Clay when you have a bunch of guys who can go to the basket. Well, a bunch of guys, and I'm saying one for Jonathan Kuminga, but Steph is getting to the bucket. Draymond, he's able to the dribble handoff, the fake handoff, and he can get to the bucket. But I just think that when Clay struggles, and you're starting to see this, the way that they're trying to unlock him is they're trying to get him in screens and cutting to the hoop, but then he's not the best finisher either. So he's missing layups and such. So I would just try and get the up tempo game and have him be like the safety outlet. Steph and everyone's paying attention to Kuminga cutting, and Draymond's got the ball, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we have to rotate over, and the last guy to rotate over to is Clay in the corner, and then boom, wide open jumper. I think the way that they play right now, with everything so stagnant, Clay almost feels like he's got to unlock it if Steph's not there to unlock it, and there's a lot of pressure there. So that's what I would do. But I like your Moody situation too, because what Moody does and what Clay doesn't do, because he's never had to do it. You've never seen Clay come in and crash an offensive board for a tip dunk. You've never seen Clay fly over because he sees an opportunity to tip a rebound to somebody. This is not the way he's ever played. And Moody does those things. And I think they need it, because there are moments where this team is so used to just the process of what the Warriors are and how they've played always. And I'm not sure that the way that they are used to playing is the way that you win in the NBA today. And this was going to be my next question to you, which is the Warriors style of play a little outdated versus what some of these other teams are doing? And I'm not really talking about the offensive action. I'm mostly talking about the matchups and the way that they put their lineups together, because you're starting to see a lot of these teams out Warriors the Warriors, and the Warriors are going back to like a little bit more of a conventional style. Like the death lineup was the thing that, like, and the Heat playing LeBron and D Wade and then Bosh at the 5, like that was like breaking the NBA. And it's almost like the Warriors are trying to go back to more of a conventional way of playing, probably because they have to, but I don't see these matchups being very favorable for them.
Yeah, I don't think their style of play is outdated. I think they're outdated.
Mm.
Like I just don't know if they're young and athletic enough to kind of like consistently and effectively do that. I think teams took their recipe and then were able to find these guys who could play the Iguodala Draymond role, but at like 6'11" or like 6'9" or 6'10", like what Chet is. Like I feel like Chet would be an awesome kind of small ball 5 in that role in like a Warriors styled offense. And those guys are just, I think, yeah, I just think that it's tough when, if Clay could lock up at the point of attack, I think it's different. I think this is a different story. I don't think we're as bad of a defense, obviously, but I think that this relied on not having two minus defenders in the backcourt, having positional size. Like the Warriors kind of started that. It's Clay's 6'7" at the shooting guard. You know, you have a pretty average size small forward. You have a, you know, maybe a little smaller 4 and then like a smaller 5, but they can all switch. All the Warriors like started that stuff and made it like, you know, what is gonna work in this league. And you know, I just think that when Clay's starting to lose it defensively, when you know, I think it's going to be I don't know. I think I'm at the point where I want to throw in the towel on. I don't know if it's just Clay. For me, yeah, it is just.
But you did
Clay.
try and trade the guy last year.
I tried to trade him last year, and at the time I was like, you know, like I think then he went on a heater. I was wrong about that, but it just feels like this one's tougher. But man, I think that I think I'm just in the camp of not necessarily like, you know, I don't think Clay, Dre, or Curry are gonna, obviously not Curry, but Clay. I think these three are gonna stay together, but I think that there needs to be major like adjustments to how they format their lineups. I think, and even then, I don't even know if that's enough. But I mean, it just seems so obvious that they need that secondary scorer. I think the most likely person is Wiggs. I don't think that's a slight to Wiggs. I was watching him against the Trailblazers, and like, you know, I read on Twitter that he had a bad game, but to open that game, he was kind of getting into a few of his moves that I was like, this could really be like the secondary scorer. He has this thing where he sizes up someone on the corner or at the wing, and then, you know, they're expecting him to drive, so they take one step back and he pulls up, and it's cash. And when he's able to, you know, when he's kind of getting reps and playing a lot. And I just feel like that guy, you know, who was the number 2 best player in the finals, like he's not aging, you know, he's just been missing time. He's just, the most unlikely thing in his career has been inconsistency. Like he's the type of Anthony Edwards who plays 72 out of the 82 games pretty consistently. And, you know, I just think that's why I'm still not down on him being like washed, because he's what, 28 or 29. And I still feel like he's capable of doing so many things. So because I know they mentioned in plus minus that they're like, like Wiggs didn't even get mentioned as like the potential second best player or something, and then Slater had to bring it up. I still think it's a very real thing that he can be the second best offensive player on the team. I don't know how much better that makes, like, I don't know if that changes your contention odds though, if he's able to step up into what he was in 21. You know, I feel like there are still some stuff that you need to address. And yeah, I mean, like, I think a trade needs to happen. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I know I've mentioned like Lowry Markkanen.
They kind of have to, right?
But I think for me though, I think that the trade that happens is going to be like a collection of role players. Like I would, you know, when they're talking about the Levine, DeRozan stuff, I'm like, we'll probably get like Caruso and Torrey Craig. Like that's like the best I feel like we can, you know, get. And not even saying like, you know, DeRozan off the bench, and not that he'd come off the bench, but that would be intriguing. But like, I don't think we should get Levine. I don't think that's the right call. But that's how I feel like, you know, we need the secondary score, and I feel like we're gonna get the collection of role players. So,
okay, here's the stat that I was saving for you, because but I was trying to find the actual games in which this happened, and I haven't been able to find it yet. But on Warriors All 82 or plus minus or whatever they called today's show, Marcus Thompson said that Pajemski had played in 2 games in a row where he had over 30 minutes. And he is a rookie, obviously.
Oh my God. Are you about to say Kuminga's never played back-to-back 30-minute games?
Kuminga has never played back-to-back games where he got 30 minutes. That was their
fire
stat.
Steve. I think you need to fire Steve. I mean, you know what it is, right? Brandon Pajemski, like he just doesn't seem like he's going to make a mistake. He's confident with his decisions.
What about that sweeping hook shot that he tries to get into?
Has he made one yet?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think he's made one yet.
You know, he did make a pretty great shot, though. Was it at the end of the first quarter or end of the second quarter where he had the step back 3? That was nice.
That was nice.
He shoots it so low, though. I just think it's going to get blocked every time.
Yeah, that guy needs to play. Like, He's a plus on the year. I'm pretty sure. I had these stats pulled up.
He was also a plus yesterday as well. I think he was like a
Yeah,
plus.
he's actually, if I filtered the plus minus stat, our highest plus is a 3.4, and that's Pajemski.
But what happens when GP comes back? Everyone gets pushed down again.
Yeah, and then he's, I mean, would you put it past Kerr to push down Kuminga instead?
That's what I'm saying, though. To me, you need to utilize the mismatches that Kuminga creates rather than take him off of the table to help your rotation. Like, I think Kuminga, he's maybe the only player not in their normal starting five who actually creates the mismatch on the other side. Like, Pajemski, he's a small guard, so you have tons of small guards to guard him. Moses Moody's a little bit more of like a normal two. Everybody in the NBA has Moses Moody size, but Kuminga, he's big, he's long, and he can jump out of the gym. You could probably find somebody to lock him up and maybe to intimidate him and stop his aggressiveness. But if they try to put like a real 4 on him in a lineup, the Warriors could take advantage of that every single time. And so I just think he creates mismatches that nobody else outside of probably Steph and Draymond, when they move Draymond to a 5, that you really create any mismatches.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I was wrong in the 3.4. That was just a per game basis. If you filter by the totals, Pajemski's a plus 51 on the year. Chris Paul's a plus 47 on the year. Kuminga's a plus 38. TJD plus 37. Saric plus 32. GP plus 20. And then Corey Joseph plus 13. And then basically everyone else with any substantial minutes is a minus. Wiggins minus 81. Looney minus 37. Dre minus 31. Clay minus 29. I think the frustrating thing about this is that like we all believe in Clay. Like I like, even as much crap as I was talking about, like I still believe in the guy. I tried to trade him and he went off, and I'm always going to be rooting for Clay. I don't think he wants to leave the Bay Area at all, and I don't want him to leave. I just think the frustrating thing is like, and it's what makes Clay, but him not having any willingness to try stuff differently. And like, that's, I think what's frustrating is that you have this, like the Warriors have kind of been built on this unselfishness in terms of Iguodala being able to come off the bench, being the player he was on the Sixers and the Nuggets. That's a starter. He comes off the bench for the Warriors. Draymond Green comes off the bench in like the playoffs against the Kings. And I'm not sure if he came off the bench against the Memphis at all either, but and then in the Celtics series, doing the offense defense stuff, like being willing and saying, this is not working, I'm willing to come off the bench. Steph coming off the bench against the Nuggets even. And this guy Clay has never done it one time. And again, that probably is what makes Clay, that just unwavering confidence of being able to score 50 points or 60 points on like no dribbles. Like, just like, I understand that, but I just think that we need to try stuff. And I think Draymond going to the small ball 5 in December is terrible, but necessary. And that just shows you where the team is at.
Yeah,
and
if they were 13-8 right now, then you don't have to worry about it. But they're 10-11, and so you may have to worry about it. The thing about Clay, as he ages, he's going to have to be that guy that you're talking about, somebody who is willing to, maybe be a sixth man in like an instant offense kind of guy.
And CP off the bench, like, legit sounds really good. Like for everyone involved. Like, just having that'd be interesting. Duo.
I wonder if they would do it. I wonder if Steve Kerr, and this has to be more of a psychological thing, because you mentioned the Iguodala thing. Iguodala comes over with Mark Jackson, and he's starting.
First Steve Kerr year, no? Oh no, it was the Mark Jackson. It was one last Mark Jackson year. Yeah,
and he's starting. And then when Steve Kerr gets it, he immediately asks Iguodala to come off the bench. And I don't think Iguodala is happy to come off the bench. But so it's not like he's unwilling to do that, right? It's not like Kerr is unwilling to do that for a younger player. He did it for Harrison Barnes, the younger player. it is the personality of the person that he asks, which may be the thing, which is maybe Clay loses a little bit of confidence, whereas Andre was not going to lose confidence in that moment.
Or maybe even like you look back at recent examples, you knew they were going to win. Like he was confident that they were going to win. Steph Curry comes off the bench in that first Nuggets game. We all knew that the Nuggets were the worst team in the playoffs without Murray and MPJ. You're confident that you're going to win that game. Draymond coming back from suspension after stepping on Sabonis and then coming off the bench in game 4. Like, not that you knew you were going to win, but you felt like you had a good chance to win. Like maybe Kerr doesn't even think that like, if he moves Clay to the bench and loses Clay, and on top of that, he doesn't even think that, like, does that make you feel much more confident about beating like the Orlando Magic? And it's like the answer is no. Then that could be another reason as to why he hasn't specifically done it with Clay. I don't know, and I think I've been against even the idea of trading for Siakam because he's a non-shooter. But again, you really just need like that secondary guy who you trust to be able to get his shot off the dribble when Steph is being double teamed, triple teamed. And in 2021, the 2020 to 21 season, that's literally all we were missing. That's literally all we were like, please, Clay. Like, I know you're hurt. You're not going to make it back, but that's all we needed because Steph was getting triple teamed. Steph was getting double teamed in the full court. And that was insane. Like, there was a possession. I think there's a play. Steph's getting full court double teamed. Draymond passes it into him and Draymond just runs and Steph just passes to Draymond and Draymond just push dribbles all the way into like a wide open layup in like a full court possession where, the game's not even on the line. And then if you have Clay there, ideally, we beat the Grizzlies or we're not even in that position to beat the Grizzlies. I mean, we're in the playoffs and I just think we're at that position again where we're trying to search for like, if only we had that secondary score, like we feel like we'd be there. And I feel like that's a ridiculous position to be in when you still have the third best player in the league at age, what is he, 36 now or 35? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, we wanted to get rid of the 2 timeline era. Okay, we trade Wiseman. Okay, I guess we don't trade Kuminga and Moody because it feels like they could be some good role players, but you draft Podziemski, the 2 timeline era drafts Cam Whitmore in that position, the 19-year-old who you feel like, is going to develop into a future star. And so you take Podziemski, you take Trace Jackson Davis, like a 5th-year player out of Indiana. Like you're obviously trying to go older and ditch the 2 timeline plan. And then it's like you're doing that to like maximize Steph. You're doing it to maximize 30, and it still feels like you're not maximizing him because the old guard is not, maximizing one of the greatest players of all time. And I think it's frustrating because obviously I was a proponent of the 2 timeline thing. I was wrong. It didn't work. But then still, this is not even working.
Yeah. So I think the risky thing to do would be to find a way to add that number 2 scorer that you're talking about. But in order to do that, they would have to give up somebody.
And it's an anti-Warrior thing. You remember what they were talking about in plus minus? You don't want to be the team that trades Andrew Wiggins, the guy who took a pay cut to stay here. You don't want to trade CP3, the guy who you just traded to get here. It's like it's kind of like bad. It's like doing the Isaiah Thomas, trading him from like the Celtics, like that.
It's bad business. And
bad business.
If you screw over a player and that agent is going to make sure everyone knows that, you're doing dirty business. So yeah, it's tough. Clay, I would never want to see that guy traded, and I hope that never happens. But I would not mind seeing at least a slight demotion or like a minutes thing where Moody does get more playing time, and maybe they unlock something with him because that dude is playing hard right now. He is playing his butt off as far as effort and energy. All right, we'll be talking about this all season long. This is not going to be this is going to be a whole long storyline for the season. We'll be back next week to talk about some stuff, but we don't know who's winning, Lakers or Pelicans yet. Do you have a pick for who you think will win this championship on Saturday?
I picked the Pelicans to win the whole thing before it started. Wow. So I'm going to stick with that. I think they match up well against just about everyone. I think they've had the Lakers number in
the Zion coming out party. Ready to see it.
That's literally the exact phrase I used when describing it in my podcast. I was like, this might be the Pelicans coming out party. they went to the playoffs in 21. You thought that could be their coming out party. No Zion, and BI is able to take those Suns who lost to the Mavericks in the next round. BI took them to 6. I don't know. They just have a lot of fun. You talk about the Magic with positional versatility. I think the Pelicans kind of, not that they started the blueprint whatsoever, but I think the Pelicans, Thunder, and Orlando Magic are all kind of following a similar trajectory with how they're team building, with how the young players and they're ready to make that noise in the regular season. So I think that the Pelicans, they just have so many guys, man. Like if we had Herb Jones, we might be the greatest team of all time. Like
what if it's Lakers Pacers?
I wouldn't be shocked.
I want to see the Pacers run them out of the gym.
I want to see the Pacers run them out of the gym too. And I mean, I think the Pacers have played like everything that the Lakers could throw at them, right? Like they just played the Celtics, who had the 2 wings, and then they just played the Bucks, who have the big and Giannis, and then the little guy and Damian Lillard. Like I think they'd be ready to take on the Lakers. But I don't know. I'm gonna stick with the
Pelicans. Be a big Miles Turner series, Miles Turner game. Because of how long the Lakers are. I want to see LeBron throw the ball off some guy's foot, knock him down, and then complain about a kickball again. That was rich, LeBron. He knocked Devin Booker on his butt by throwing the ball off of him, and then you complain and give up a layup on the other side. All right. We'll be back next week. And Brian and I are actually going to go to the Niners game this weekend. So I'll have some I'll have a live look when Rod and I do our We Want Winners, which right now is looking like Monday evening, because we're not going to be able to do it Sunday night because he's got some plans. So Monday evening, I think, is where it's looking right now for We Want Winners. All right. So for Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.